All right, actually, Mike Auburn inspired me with his video that he created about a question asked by Michael Hughes. So, just to recap, he created a video about how to have a stick menu at the top, menu stick to the top. And there's a way to do that easily in ProStyler without having to require to code. There are some little bugs here and there, so maybe that's why he used his own code. But anyway, so I'm going to show you. I thought a little bit more deeper into that, and wanted to know the ProStyler way of doing so. So let's recap the question here about Kathy Earn's website. So this is the website, and we have a background video here with a fixed image and some images here as well. That when we scroll stays at the same place. But what you wanted most is that up to a certain point, when the menu reaches the top of the window, it stays there. It sticks there. Okay. So the video that Mark created left the menu stick at the top like that from the start because it was, according to him, too complicated to do it like that. So I wanted to do it the ProStyler way, like I mentioned, and I'm going to show you the end result that we have here. So pretty similar website. And when I scroll, as you can see, fix at the background. And when I'm at the top, the menu disappears here because you might know that there's a little bug in ProStyler. We need to scroll back up in order for the stick menu to come out. So maybe Mark's code would solve that problem. So I didn't look into that. But anyway, the ProStyler way of doing so without a bunch of code will work that way with the sticky menu at the top here. And of course, the background with the video. So let me show you what I've done. If I go back here. So first of all, I created a new page. Of course, we need to have a blank template. And then we need to start adding the elements for the background video and so on. So you know that we have background here. I could have used a background video like that, and I tried it just to see if that would work. But it creates a problem when we try to have that green overlay here, that kind of green, yeah, overlay that we have on top of the video, because that's not part of the video, by the way. The original video is this one here, okay, and it's enlarged a lot, but there's no green overlay. We need to manually create it. So using the background video like that prevented me from using that overlay the same way that it was done on the other website. So that's why I chose to go with a different route. So what I did, I created one row and I created sub rows inside of it. So I can put some elements on the main row, and that will go for the entire page since everything is inside that main row. All right. So that main row here, if I click on edit to see the row setting, it's a full width, of course, like Mark mentions in his video, since we want that to take the entire width. If I want to do the exact same thing as that website here, it need to be a full wide content. Could be a full box sometimes as well, but in this case, we use a full width. And I didn't put any background on this one. And I put an ID of overlay here. So you will see later on, I will have to put a little bit of CSS to make it work. So I'll use that ID overlay right there. Now, once inside of that, I created a sub row. And that sub row, as you can see, the three items here, let me go that way. So you'll be able to see them side by side. All right. So this row here is the three images that we have there. So dream, believe, achieve is some text, the text that we have here. We have an image here, which is the logo. And we have here some text, so as seen on, and two images, which are those two logos. And we have put some spacer on top to, of course, push it down a little bit, so we have different space here for the spacer. Now that row is this main row here, and on that row, I came here and put my full width again, and this is where I put my background image. So the background image here is the image that we have right there. So that image is right there. I've set it to vertical because unfortunately in ProStyler we cannot say not repeat. If I say not repeat here, it will put the image bigger, and that's not what I want. It will do what we call a cover. So I decided to just do a vertical since I have a fixed height. It won't really matter in this particular case, but in a normal case, I would probably go inside the CSS itself and attach to the arrow and say no repeat. Okay, but it does repeat right now, but we don't see the rest, of course, since it's under the content. And I've put an ID of arrow on this one as well, by the way. So I just realized that this is my background image, my background video. Probably I did some modification and forgot to save. As you can see, my background video is not there anymore because I did some testing, like I mentioned, by putting the video directly here on the background. So that's why I removed it from the other place and forgot to put it back. So I need to put the background video directly in the main row. That's why I've put everything as a sub row. So sorry for that, but you'll see at the same time how I did it. So in the background for that row setting, I used the direct video in this case because I wanted to use the real video. So I need to provide both an MP4 and WebM video links. So let's come here quickly to get it. So the video here, sorry for that, but here's how I found it. MP4, here's the link, and the WebM video is the same, but WebM extension instead. So if I click, well, my window is a little bit small because of those side-by-side windows, but it should work. So let's say save and refresh that, and now my video is back. Alright, so here we have, after that, the menu. So the menu, we have a spacer. I'll talk about the spacer later on. We have a navigation, and then my editing, my 3 images here, another editing, and just a spacer to make sure that I have way enough content, if I can say it like that, to scroll, to have the sticky menu at the top. Okay, so I'm going to put that back to full screen since I want to have more space to work with. Alright, so like I mentioned, the video background is on the main row. Then I have my first row, which has an ID of arrow. Why arrow? Simply because it was using that class here, the index arrow video and arrow content. That probably comes from an arrow slideshow, something like that. Okay, so that's why I simply kept that same ID here. So this is the main image here, the background image that we can see here, and those 3 images on the top of it. So now what I need to do is, if I want to be able to scroll and have the images and that background image to stay fixed there, I will need to use a couple of lines of CSS. So since I only need that for that page, the other page don't have that video at the top, I can come here and use CSS just for that page. Okay, if you need that for more than one page, you should go into the general settings of ProStyler and put the code there. So the only thing that I need to do for that to work is this little CSS code here, the arrow position fix. So hero is the name of my ID in my sub row. So that's why I use this one, and that will make that content here stay at the same place. So let me guess if I can show it to you. Hero. So I have my ID hero here, and if I remove that fixed position here, you see that it scrolls with the rest. Of course, creates other problem that I'm going to talk about later on. So with that being fixed in position, the rest kind of slides on top of it. So this is the main section. Now, as soon as we put the video to fix, let me just remove that for 2 seconds. Okay, so save that, and I'm gonna say my spacer here. My spacer is 592. I'm gonna simply delete it for now. Hopefully it won't be too messy. So as you can see, it still works. Okay, except that right now it scrolls because I removed the fix. It does repeat here, so as I mentioned, the images repeat vertically, repeating vertically, so that's why we see it here. So as soon as I put that CSS code to say position fix, and I'm gonna turn back on by removing the comments here. As soon as we do so, it kind of remove it from the document. It's behind the other content. So we still see the video a little bit here. So that's why we need to push that content down to be able to see the video, because right now it's behind because of the position fix. Okay, kind of removes it from the flow of the document. So that's why here I had a spacer to push the content down. Okay, it was oops, anyway, 592. And 592 was just a number that I realized by searching. The image here is 612, and we already have, because it's a sub row, we already have some margin on top and bottom that I cannot remove. So I need to remove those values from that 612 pixels. So that's why I end up with 592. So did I save it? Yeah, okay. So now everything's back to normal. So that's why I need to put a spacer to push it down. Now, the next thing, last thing, the navigation. So again, I used all sub rows for everything inside that page because of the background video. So if I go in my navigation, you always have an option here to stick navigation to the top when scrolling. So that's why you don't need to manually put code to do that. So I've just said it just by saying yes, and automatically it tells that to be 0 pixels from the top when we scroll. When it gets out of the view, it doesn't stick to the top, to 0 at the top all the time, just when it's out of the view. PostAlert does that automatically. So by doing that, it automatically sticks to the top when I go beyond that menu here. So don't have to do anything to do that. Okay, so everything's done. Now you might have noticed that I have a little bit more CSS code here, and that's purely optional. Okay, so the float left here was simply created to be able to put those two images side by side. Okay, because if not, the images are one on top of the other, and I cannot have sub rows here to create two columns and things like that. So that's why I have that little CSS there that says float to the left and use the width of 50%. So they take half of that column here, which is a big column. This one is divided in 3 columns, by the way. And this is where the magic works for the kind of a green overlay here. Okay, so first of all, if I remove it, let's see what it will look like. If I refresh, so you see the real video in the background. Okay, now of course if we want to do that effect here, I need to use an overlay, or that's how I call it anyway. So a kind of green background with some transparency effect on it. And the way that it was done on this website, I tried to create something similar with mine, is by using the before pseudo class. So of course, if you don't know about that, that's a CSS thing. So you have seen probably often when we go inside the code, if you ever go inside the code anyway, that you have too many places. Let's say, trying to give it to go fast here, but you often have those two dots here or two columns before, which is a class here. So this is what we call the pseudo class. So that's what I'm using here to be able to put some content before that overlay. So remember, overlay was the overall row. Okay, so by using my ID overlay and the column before, you can put one or two column, by the way, it works the same way. They recommend to use two double column, but of course all the browser don't support it, but we don't really use those all the browser anymore, so I could use two columns here if I wanted to. It's going to put some code before the content. So the background color here is that green color, and as you can see, it has an alpha value of 0.75, which is 25% of transparency. But just by doing that will not work, because the div itself has no spacing, has no content, so it would just be one little green line that we would probably not even see. So that's why I need to put a width to it, and I set the height to be 612 because that's the height of my image. I could have set 100% as they did here, but the problem is that we don't have the same control because we don't build it manually. So ProStyler doesn't allow us to have full control over all the hierarchy of the divs. So doing so would mean that I would have my green overlay on all the page, and that's not what I want. So I know that my image in the background is 612 pixels, so that's why I've put that on the height. Then I need to position it absolutely to be able to have it on top, remove it from the flow, to display to block to make sure that it takes the entire space, and I need to use what we call the Z index. So let me just show it to you if I can. So let's see, which one is this? Let's go directly like that. It's going to be faster. Overlay. All right, so overlay here, and my before comes just after that. So whoops, I removed my overlay, so sorry. I need to first of all re-enable it to be able to show to you what I wanted to show you. All right. So here we go. All right, so I have my background color here. And then my Z index. Okay, so the Z index is the order, just like Photoshop, layers in Photoshop. So this is where my content here, my, in this case, background color will be. So for example, if I put an overlay index of 0, it's even behind that video. If I put 1, it's going to be between the video and that background image and content on top of it. If I put an index of 2, as you can see, is on top of all the content. So even the logo, the image, everything is behind that green overlay, and I can move up. Okay, so it really depends on the content that you have. In this particular case, index 1 was the good one to go, so I'm showing it to you because it might be a different number in your particular scenario. Okay, so you need to be aware of that. You might want to try different values. But in this particular case, 1 was the good value. So that's why I have a Z index of 1. And finally, the margin left of -10, because there's always a margin here. And if we don't do so, there will be a little space between my green overlay. If I deactivate it, you'll see it. Here we go. So there's always a margin. So we kind of remove that margin by doing the opposite, a -10 to the left, to push it to the left a little bit more. So that's what this CSS code does. So by using those lines of CSS now, you can, I'll try to put that CSS code, by the way, in the post. So by doing so, you can have that final result here that works exactly like the final website. So hope this helps, and if you have any question, post them here. Thank you.